Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zips, and welcome to the Wildfrost 1.2.0 Companions tier list. Last time, it's been a while since I've done a tier list for Wildfrost. The last one was about half a year ago for the charms in this game, and I plan on doing a video updating that tier list, because there's definitely some things I need to update with it. But for now, we are doing a companions tier list. This will be a tier list of every yeah, obviously. So what's less obviously is the way I did these tiers. So let me tell you about how I organized these tiers. So you can think of this tier as like, I've separated each tier into two categories. With every unit in this game, I would put them in two categories: carry units and support units. Carry units, I put up a talking point. Carry units are end up being pretty much your main source of damage throughout your run, and typically are the ones you put most of your charms into. If you watch my videos, these will be the units that you will see in the thumbnails of my video. Next, and the other category are support units. Support units are units that either have high health that allow them to take damage so that your other units can stay alive, good damage potential for the early game that can allow you to get past difficult fights. An example of the a support unit with health would be Baris. An example of a damage dealer would be someone like Bombom. Or they can provide benefits for your other units. An example of that would be Shelly. Or they can have a mixture of all the three. And yeah, so that is how I would describe each unit in the game. For the tiers, we have the Great tier. These are units that are super consistent and very easy to build into. Good tier, which is units which are also very consistent, just not quite as broken as the great tiers. Okay tiers, these are kind of like middle of the road in what they try to do. But they are able to get the job done pretty nicely. And niche tier okay tier is like they're able to do their job, and carry units are able to do it with maybe just a little bit more support than some of the higher tiers need. And niche tier for the carry side need either like a lot of support to be able to achieve what they do, and even when you get their support, they're not as strong as the higher tier units. And niche supports what they provide is just not as helpful. But something I want to mention is, despite I think pretty much every single unit in this game is good in their use cases. In a run where each characters have times where they are the correct option you need to pick in your run, with one exception, and you can see what the exception is gonna be if you look at the tiers. Last talking points, just because, so to give you a frame of how much experience I have in this game, I'm currently at 337 hours into it. But despite that, this tier list is still subjective and my opinion should not be taken as gospel. The tier list will be based off Overcranked difficulty. And one last thing, just because I put like a unit in like the carry category, doesn't mean they are not able to perform in the other role. Some units in this game are great at fulfilling both categories, and I will mention them as we go. Okay. everything has been said. Rules have been said. We are already 5 minutes in the video. Let us get started. So, first up, Spoof. Spoof goes into the Spoof tier. Spoof is the worst unit in the game. By a good margin, I think. So, Spoof's effect on paper isn't that bad. Spoof's effect is that he makes a quote-unquote bootleg copy of a random enemy on the field. Bootleg meaning that their attack, health, and turn counter are randomized between 1 and 5. Boy, there are a lot of problems with this unit. So first up, they only have 2 health. So it's one of the frailest units in the game. Second, they have a 5 turn counter is just really brutal in this game. You're gonna hear me mention this a lot throughout this tier list, but like the unit just has terrible stats. That's the idea. It's just terrible stats is what it is, and its effect does provide a lot of problems, specifically in how random it is. The randomness really kills a lot of the utility that you want your units to have, or this ability can have. Like, an example, let's say you want to try getting a bunch of, like, units that you can buff up with Vanjun. Where is she on this? Where is Vanjun? Here she is. So you have, like, you want to make a bunch of units that Vanjun can buff. Well, then, what if you just get, like, a bunch of 5 turn counter units and, like, make a bunch of 5 to 4 turn counter summons with mediocre effects, and then it's just kind of like whatever. Like you could find much better buff targets. Let's say you want to like make units so you can sacrifice them for units like Grath and Krao. Well, then you can end up just randoming into like. If you don't have one of the mask items and you're using just like scrappy swords or bone, or maybe something like a berry blade, which is a strong item to use your sacrifices, you could just randomize into 5 HP shades and just be fucked. Now thinking about it, I think this unit could. Being a chum block dispenser I think I might honestly put this in niche support more than I'm just really niche support. I think Spoof is definitely the worst unit in the game. But now thinking about it, I don't think I'm sure there are use cases for this unit. Because being a chump block dispenser is, and like, if you do have a shade thing, being able to make items can be very good. Being able to make shades with any amount of attack could be really good for units like Monch or Krao. It's also just like this unit has a lot of issues with the way it summons in final fights, because unmovable just like messes it up. Like the unmovable just means like if spoofs end up like summoning a unit and that like messes up like your positioning, you're just kind of fucked. Lots of problem with this unit. Pretty dang bad. Alright, next up we got Alloy. Alloy is, I also have the Wildfrost wiki pulled up. So let me find Alloy here, just so I can make sure I'm not getting anything wrong about her effect. Alloy is 12 attack, 12 health, 6 attack, 5 turn counter, and starts with 1 bomb. And whenever she activates, she gives 1 scrap to a random ally. I think Alloy is a really good support unit. Alloy is not as good is okay at tanking damage. She could be great, but unfortunately she does start off with that 1 bomb. So her ability to take HP can be real. her ability to take damage can be really lackluster in certain situations. But the other parts of her are also really good. Being able to give scrap to, the effect of being able to give scrap to just any unit is basically like a free chump block, which is what Spoof does. But it's like, and it's a very nice effect that can really help you in a lot of cases, because chump blocking is very, very valuable in this game, and more of that is good. And also, 6 attack, even though it's a 6 attack is a good threshold. It one-shots a lot of units, and does a good chunk to a lot of others. It's a good break, and even the worst thing about this unit is that it just has a 5-turn counter, so you aren't able to really, like, play it. She's just kind of slow, but she's very strong. Don't get it wrong. Next up, we got the Baker. The Baker is one of the new units in this update. And so, my first impression of the Baker was that he was, like, amazing. But in playing with him more, he's kind of inconsistent. In the runs where you're able to play him, if you have, like, a Snuffer Mask, he is amazing. If you have a Grath, he is even better. Okay, well, not even better. With Grath, he's great. Being able to, and Debbie Crow, he's okay. Monch is just bad with, because we want Monch to be eating him. Oh, wait, shit, the wiki doesn't have all the new units. Okay, well, thankfully, I do remember what this guy does. Every 4 turns, he gives you a skull muffin, which I think that's what the item is called, which has Zoomlin, which means it's free to play and allows you to sacrifice a unit for free. That is potentially extremely powerful. The problem with this unit is that if you're not able to, like, constantly be able to use the cards that he generates, he is actively detrimental. Because he's just filling your deck up with a bunch of junk that you can't play. Because it's not like you can just sacrifice your own units. Yeah, Baker, I still think him being strong, him being so powerful in the situations you can play him in, puts him in okay. He also has very good health, so he can take damage. It's just, he is gonna fill up your deck a lot. Not as bad as someone like Fulbert, but it's like the same idea as Fulbert, where if you can't use the cards that you're generating, then it's pretty rough. He also does not deal any damage. So he effectively just hampers if you're, again, not able to play his Skull Muffins, he really hampers your offensive capabilities, which can really definitely get you killed. Well, no. But yeah, I've said what I needed to say with Baker. Next up, we got Baris. Baris, when she takes damage, she gives the damage she took. When she loses HP, she gives lost HP to a random unit on the field. Also, I know I said this is a companion tier list, but I'm gonna be referring to throughout this whole video, I'm gonna be referring to all of these as units, because that is the terminology, that is the term I always use when describing characters in, like, a roguelike. So, yeah. Next up, we got Baris. Baris is definitely a support unit. Where they're going, I'm gonna put I think I'm gonna put her in... Do I? She's really, really good. She, like, extremely good. This unit is effectively 6. Okay, I'm gonna put her in great tier. Her effect means she is effectively 16 HP, which is ridiculous, and with, like, very little downside. Giving HP to, and she can also just give she can also give HP to other units that want to get hit. So she can give HP to units like Shen, or someone like Knuckles. Oh wait, no, he can't. No, she is specific to Shademancers. So she can give it to units like Shen or Goji Berry. Or Goji Bear. Yeah, very good. Pretty standard. Just playing her very easy. 3-turn counter means she's not incapable of, like, putting up offensive potential. If you have like a Molten Dip, playing it in her lane along with 2 other units is very effective. Well, your 2 other... Oh, okay, yeah. With the other units being, like, one of your carry units. She's not going to be your main source of damage, but she definitely can allow you to... She can help out. Makes it good to get... Having her, it makes getting combo kills easier in that metric. Next up, we got Big Berry. I'm gonna put Big Berry right besides Alloy. He is very good at supporting your run. Alright, I'm gonna take a break to drink some water. Big Berry, very standard, high HP, is able to take a lot of hits. 5 attack means he's able to deal some decent damage in the early game. And his effect doesn't really matter. It rarely, like, plays a big role in his viability. Sometimes it does help you out a lot, but it's very rare that it does. Big Berry's job is just to take. Also, something very important to mention with any unit with high HP is that they're really good at they're really valuable for sitting in front of Frost Bomber on the final fight, so that he is not able to attack your main damage dealer, which are typically pretty frail. Not always the case. It's not always that case, but having a unit to absorb the attacks from Frost Bomber's lane is really valuable for that fight. It's just extremely valuable. And Big Berry, along with Alloy and Baker even, and Baris are really good at doing that. Yeah. Next up, BG. I am going to put I think BG is really good. BG 8 HP, and the thing with BG is that her just applying 3 bomb is enough that where it's like a noticeable, like, BG's effect is that she applies. All right, I'm already tripping over my words. BG has great HP, so she's able to take damage, and the bomb effect is really good for busting through. Can be really good for busting through, like, very dangerous units like Woolly Drek. Having her hit into a Woolly Drek is really good. She also can function as a good carry unit. Actually, if you find something like Balance Charm or other things that decrease her turn counter. At 4 turn counter, she's not really able to, like, deal damage. She needs other units to, like, capitalize on the bomb she applies for her. But if you're able to get her into a situation where she's able to, like, follow up quickly with the bomb that she's applied, she can deal some serious damage. BG is very good, and you should consider her. Next up, Blunky. Blunky is finally our first carry unit we've seen on this tier list. Blunky. So Blunky's thing is that he has a 2-turn counter, which is phenomenal. And if you're able to find any car to find something that reduces his turn counter, then you're attacking every single turn, which is really powerful. I'm gonna put Blunky in good carry tier. You do need to find so same with all the carry units in this game. They need support in order to do crazy damage, and Blunky is no different. Blunky is just great. Now, Blunky can fall kind of flat if you don't have the right support, because 1 damage every 2 turns just is very little. But if you're able to get the support for Blunky, and it's not too hard to get the support for him, Blunky is able to do great things for your run. He is also able to function as a support unit, if you need to, for Nova, if you're doing a Nova build. Next up, Bombom. Bombom is the best support unit in the game. No question in my mind. Bombom is absolutely crazy. Bombom has 20 health, 7 attack on a 4-turn counter with Barrage. If you are going... having Bombom means you win, like, most combats for free. Because you're dealing 7 Barrage just destroys everything in the early game. One of the scariest fights in the game is Infernoco, because there's a lot of units that hide behind him, and that hide behind Infernoco, like mini Mokos that become very strong if you don't kill them, and it's hard to kill them if you don't have a way to reach them. Bombom makes goddamn minced meat of those kind of units that like to sit in the back. Bombom is excellent. The downside of Bombom is that you're not able to play other units in her lane, which because she explodes on herself and other units in the lane. Most of the time, this is pretty easy. This is very easy to play around. You just put her in her own lane, which you're also gonna be doing on final fight, so that she can redirect Frost Bomber's attacks. Okay, wait, what am I trying to say? But the effect of destroying other units in your lane means, or attacking, the times it's detrimental is when you have like a lot of clunkers or a lot of units you really want on the field, and Bombom makes that like not possible. Bombom, way you can think about it is Bombom locks you to having only 4 units on the field at a time. You can't have 5 unless you're okay with one of your units taking 5 damage when she's attacks, which there are some builds there are setups where that's fine. But that downside is definitely worth it for the potential Bomb has for getting you through the early game and being a useful tank in the late game. She is wonderful. Sorry that I paused there. Disclaimer is it's a late time for a disclaimer, but you're gonna hear me tripping over my words a lot. So I'll try you're gonna see me pausing a lot to formulate what I want to say. And you will occasionally see me pausing. or pausing the recording, that is. Next up, we have... What's your name again? Why am I forgetting your name? Hold on, give me a second. Her name is Bonnie, and I've unpaused my music. There we go. Yeah, Bonnie. Also, I accidentally moved... Oh, wait. Was Bingu Uli's here? Wait a second, my tier list got messed up. And you know what? Fuck it, we can talk about Bingu. And with this setup, I will actually be ranking the pets. Because I think I have pretty good opinions on all the pets. On most of the pets. Bingu is one of them. I think Bingu is okay as Bingu is really as your starting pet is at his worst in your first couple of combats, and that's really bad because that's when you want your pets to be good. Is when you need your pets to be good. If you get if you get a bad first pick with your frozen travelers, and then you go into get a really bad setup with charms the next fight, you can just die because Bingu doesn't do enough. But in later parts of the run, Bingu with ink is actually Bingu's ink is pretty dang useful. It's just in the early game you need him to be good. You need your pet to be good, and he's not. But I think his use case in the early game makes him no, I'm gonna actually put him in niche. He's fine, but I'm definitely not gonna put him in the same tier as Baker. Baker is much better. Another unit going in the niche support tier is Bonnie here. Bonnie restores 2 health to all allies and cleanses them. The cleanse effect is potentially really strong, but really situational. If you're fighting in the poison fight or the ink fight, it's really great. It can be really great. And if you have doing a thing where you're applying bomb to one of your units, and then you're able to purify that. If you're playing something like Blaze Bomb. But most of the time it's really situational, and 2 HP to everyone is not that much, especially since every 4 turns. It does note the boost it does to your survivability is noticeable, I think, but it's just not that much, and she only has 4 HP, so she is not able to really... Her ability to take hits is very underwhelming. And healing... doing any kind of build where you want to try healing for, offensive gain with, something like Big Bear, with, someone like Lil Berry, or you're playing you're playing Heart Forge. Her only not triggering immediately when she plays means she's kind of too slow for those kinds of builds. Not that bad for those builds, but too slow, but slow to where she's not that good. Next up, we got Bushu. Bushu restores 3 health. Bushu, another pet. I will put, even though she has a higher turn counter, I'm gonna put, and does not cleanse, I'm gonna put Bushu a tier above Bonnie, which is really embarrassing for Bonnie. 3 HP instead of 2 HP is noticeable, even though it is on a 5 turn counter. I find the healing she provides is noticeably better than Bonnie's. And another strength with Bushu is that they actually have an attack stat. 3 attack every 5 turns is something, which and Bonnie, oh, something, and Bonnie doesn't have a something. So, that's a dumb way to put it, but having 3 attack is better than nothing. And she has the same HP as Bonnie, but since you're gonna be having your first couple of combats, 4 HP honestly isn't terrible for taking hits in that early game. Bushu is pretty definitely a good pet. You're particularly gonna want to play her in the early game with any kind of like leader that is gonna be taking hits, like a smackback leader. Definitely not with like a leader that is like offensively like incapable, offensively lacking, because she doesn't do very much damage, and picking her with a leader that also doesn't do much damage means, again, you can just die a lot of the time. You can just kind of die in the early game. Next up, I am gonna put Chikichi in not niche carry. Chikichi is a great support unit. Chikichi, whenever he sacrifices, he respawns with higher attack and health, and he does this 5 times, or can do this 5 times before eventually being out of stronger versions to summon into. Chikichi is fantastic for sacrifice builds. There is no reason you would not want Chikichi in a sacrifice build. With Skull Misty, it's great. Because you're able to just do like 5 attack you're able to get like the best case scenario. In most case scenarios, you're gonna be getting 6 attack out of Chikichi when you Skull Misty it. If you are proactive with your sacrifices, and you do certain crown, and you have a crown setup where you're immediately sacrificing him. It's also amazing, great with Grath, one of the units that you really want to have if you ever gonna play Debbie Crow, and same is said with Munch. Just excellent for any kind of sacrifice builds. Gives great access to strong mask effects like Yeti Mask. Chikichi, very safe a great safe pick. And I haven't even mentioned he's also a good tank, because he can have up to 10 HP and do 10 attack, and a 10 attack for if you get up into the higher versions of Chikichi. And even if you only sacrifice her 3 times, that's or twice, it's like 3 attack, 6 attack, 6 health, which is really nice, which is a very nice stat line for the early game. Yeah, Chikichi, phenomenal. Next up, we got Chompom. We're on to another carry unit. I'm gonna put Chompom. Chompom, I think, is good. Obviously, you need shell with Chompom. He does damage equal to the shell he has. If you are able to just give a bunch of shell to Chompom, if you have a shell bow, then he is great. He can just completely... Chompom is great if you're able to high roll. Chompom will just completely reduce the enemies to smithereens. There is, having a 10 shell bow that's lumined. You're playing that on your leader and Chompom. It's insane. It's excellent value. Chompom, great damage dealer, but he's not going in great tier because you do need shell. The saving grace for Chompom is that a lot of time you can just pick shell shell cards, and then later on in your run, you can find Chompom and just pivot your run into him. Like, all the shell cards are good, and and also all the shell units, well, aside from one of them, specifically, this guy here is really good. Yes, and just all the shell items being things you would want to take anyway is a reason why Chompom is just a really good unit. Next up, Krao. If I were going off based off my experiences, I would put Krao in okay tier. But I think Krao is pretty cool, and I really like playing him. But unfortunately, I am going to put him in niche. Krao really does need, like, good sacrifice. Like, not just good sacrifice support, really good sacrifice support. You can't just have something like an egg that you sacrifice that you play Yeti Skull on like twice. You need like what it feels like you specifically need Skull Misty with him in order to get his attack up to a significant amount for the late game. One of the nice things about Krao is with 2 attack, he is able to hold Barrage Charm, and he's pretty decent with Barrage Charm if you're able to find it. But the problem with Krao is that if you're not able to get like all the support for him, great support for him. He's pretty worthless. Thinking about it, the thing that really hurts this unit is his 4-turn counter. 4-turn counter just means even when you're able to scale him up like a lot, he's not dealing that much damage with a 4-turn counter. Like a 30 unit, if you're really getting up to like something like 30 attack and he has a 4-turn counter, he's really not going to be doing that much for you. But I think Krao, if you're able to find, I don't think he's as bad. People hate Krao, and I don't think he's as bad as everybody says, but I think he is one of the weaker carry. He is definitely one of the weaker carry units in the game. Next up, we got Demona. Demona, I think, is okay. Demona used to be pretty bad, but with the new change, she is able to put out pretty decent damage with a 3-turn counter, same as Baris. And her effect to apply Demonize to make items be able to apply Demonize is potentially really great. Decent in the early game, and it's great with any kind of card that barrages, or with specifically the case in Bink, where you're able to apply Demonize to every unit on the field. The best card with Demona is Bomb Barrel in Clunk Masters, because you are able to give the units, you're able to like have an 8. It's just like stacking Bomb with Demonize is really powerful. It can lead into some extremely powerful hits. Like, let's give an example. If you combo it with just baseline, if you play a junk, it turns a junk into an 8 damage attack, and that goes even higher with other attacks. Like, if you just play like a Gear Hammer, all of a sudden you're going up to 12 damage, and then you go all the way up into something like a Proto Stomper. You're dealing 40 damage, which one shots Frost Junker and Frost Junker, Frost Scrapper. I don't remember I never remember the name of the guy who destroys the cards in your rightmost card. Honestly, I might actually put her in good. I think this unit might secretly be really good. The only thing with her is that she doesn't. It feels like there's only something better than her. But I haven't played the new version of her too much, but I think she is pretty good. I am gonna put her in good support. And at 6 health, she's pretty decent at taking hits. Next up, we got Egg. Sorry for the sudden music change. I'm deciding to pause between each entry to kind of gather my thoughts so I don't stumble over as much. Next up, we got Egg, aka Dreg. Egg potentially can go into great support, but I'm gonna put him at the top of good support. The thing that holds him back from being a great support is that when he's summoned, he's only has a 5-turn counter, and it can take a bit to get him on the drag himself. It takes a bit for drag for himself to get on the field. The great thing with drag is that it's on destroy and not on sacrifice when he summons. And when drag summons, he is a very strong unit. 5 attack, 3 frenzy kills a lot of things. And 5 turn counter, even though it is a lot, his damage output is still great. Like, if you were to give with a lower turn counter, this unit would just be busted in the early game. There would be no fear to whatsoever. And God, even if I think out my words, I'm still gonna trip. The damage is excellent. It's not as the small problem with it is that it doesn't help having. Specifically, I'm thinking with Infernoco, whereas drag doesn't help with the problem in that fight, which is units being behind Infernoco. But in fights like Bone Cats, where you just let him sacrifice himself so he can get a big chunk of damage off on on something like the on a Pawpaw, or just he can kill, or you sunburst to him so he can kill the marrow before other enemy spawns. It's just a couple of examples. He one-shot whenever he goes, he one-shots a Bigfoot or a Gromble, which is really good for that fight. The damage is great, and is also, of course, really good in sacrifice builds because he's basically effectively 2 units in one. It's a lesser version of Chikichi, and it's a kind of advantage with Chikichi is that once you sacrifice him once, he's 5 attack while Chikichi is 4 attack, which is slightly better for Skull Misty setups. It's very good for Skull Misty setups. One of the best units. Great with Soulbound Skulls. And he can sit, and he's also just there is actually some value in not letting him get injured, so that when if you don't let Drag get injured, he's effectively a 13 HP unit. Yeah. And even if he is injured, it's effectively 9 HP, which is still quite a lot. Egg is surprisingly good at, soaking up a lot of damage. And Egg just... Oh, God. Now, I'm thinking... I feel like I think I am gonna put Egg in great tier. Egg / Drag is really good. It's also, really fun if you could play, if you can do a run where you can play Vanjun with him, and then you buff up Drag, and then Drag is able to do and then Dreg does like a lot of damage on with 3 Frenzy. It's pretty inconsistent, which I'll touch more on when we get to Vanjun, but Egg, that great support unit. We are already 45 minutes into the video, and we have touched on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Only 16 units, so I should hurry up. I should speed up a little bit. Next up, we got Firefist. Firefist, it has a lot of HP, so she's really good as a tank. And she's able, on her first, once she's tanked enough damage, she is able to, like, chunk. In the later stages of the game, she is able to chunk something in the front line. This, on practice, her ability to, like, gain spice on hit after taking damage, is, like, less offensively useful compared to something like Big Berry, who just always has 4 HP, or who just always has 5 attack, or while also having like one less of a turn counter, or like Alloy, who has the same turn counter but always has 6 and a effect that also can be useful to ally clunkers. But with 12 HP, in practice, she's not going to really do much damage because of a 5 turn counter, and she only is going to be dealing, like, notable damage on the first time she attacks, when later on, when she doesn't have HP to spare for effect, she's going to be not as good offensively, but just with 12 HP makes her pretty good. I'm just going to put her in okay, but she's definitely at the top of okay. Next up, we got Fizzle. Fizzle is 3 Frenzy, apply 1 Bomb. This is basically a counterpart to Foxy. Foxy also has 2 Frenzy, but 1 less turn counter, and I think having 1 turn counter makes her notably a lot worse than Foxy. The bomb is not that great. It basically just means whenever she attacks, she does 3 damage. If you scale her up, it's good, it's decent, and there are some builds where you give her, like, if you're able to give her, like, Bomb Charm, it's really good. But the bomb she applies on average doesn't usually amount to much for herself, and you want her. I used to thought Fizzle was, like, one of the best units in the game. Fizzle has significantly dropped off in my mind, but I definitely do think she's okay. This 4 turn counter really hurts her as an offensive unit. But there are definitely some cool charm setups you can do. Like, she's really good if you get Bomb Charm, and then, like, you're applying 2 Bomb, which puts up her damage by quite a lot. And then if you're able to Lumen Vase that, it's very strong. And she's really good if you can reduce her turn counter. And so, something I should mention with all the carry units in this game is, like, the lower tier, is that, like, they're all great. They all can win you your run if you get the right if you're able to build the right support for him. It's just that the lower ones need more support and aren't as strong when they get all their support than the higher tier ones. Next up, we got Fulby. Fulby, I'm a pretty big Fulby hater. I don't like Fulby that much. Fulby has 12 attack, or 12 HP on a 3 turn counter, which is pretty decent. But 2 attack means she's actually, honestly, it feels like she does a lot less damage compared to, like, Berry. Wait, doesn't Baris also have a 3 turn counter? Well, Baris has, like, an excellent effect, like, a beneficial effect, where this character, a lot of the times it feels like her effect is more detrimental than anything. If you're playing a junk build, then it's builds that rely on, like getting Junk to use like recycle cards are a little inconsistent. And problem with Fulby is that she adds way too much junk to your deck. Fulby will end up like across like a couple turns will end up adding like 5 junk to your deck. You really don't want her to take any like small hits. Like getting hit by a jab joke feels really bad with Fulby. And you want her to get hit so your other units don't get hits. Fulby in practice she just doesn't offer much. She is basically only a tank, and being a tank is still really good because you can put her in Frost Bomber's lane on the final fight. But she's a tank that doesn't offer anything offensively, while in most cases has an actively detrimental effect. If you're able to use her effect, she's okay. I don't think most of the time it is just actively detrimental. Next up, we got Foxy. Foxy is amazing. Foxy, 3 turn counter, excellent turn counter. 2 frenzy, excellent. If you give Foxy any amount of attack, he's so strong. Possibly the best carry unit in the game. It is unbelievably easy to just put so many charms are just strong at Foxy. Anything that boosts damage is amazing. Anything that reduces turn counter is amazing. Anything that lets him apply something on hit is amazing. And if you can give him like the only thing that's like there's nothing. One of the issues with Foxy is against against enemies with on-hit effects like Teeth or Smackback. You're able to... Teeth and Bone Cats can be pretty rough for Foxy, but it's Foxy just with 3 Frenzy puts out crazy damage. Very good. Next up, we got Fulbert. Fulbert is pretty weird. So Fulbert is one of the newer units, whenever you apply Shell or Spice in him, he will apply that number equal in poison to a random enemy on the field. The fact that it's so you are potentially able to put up a lot of poison with him, and you can, if you're able to get value out of his poison if you're doing if you're out of his effect, like you play something like a shell bow on him, and all of a sudden you're like keeping your units alive and you're also dealing damage at the same time, which is great value. The big downside is that he only has 4 health, so he dies so if he ever has to get hit, he dies really quickly. And he definitely is meant to be a carry unit, because you have to put a lot of support into him to get use out of his effect. And his effect can be very good, but one of the downsides of his effect is that it hits a random unit, which is already that's already just inconsistent. Like, you might need to hit one unit, but then you end up hitting another you didn't need it, or end up hitting one enemy that you really needed to deal with, but then you hit something inconsequential. And then with on Frost Guardian, if you immediately hit into Frost Guardian, you're in a lot of trouble. Then you just have to, it's really hard to come back from that kind of point. He is pretty bad into Frost Guardian. And then he's also, as a first pickup, he's really bad, because he just has bad stats despite having a 3-turn counter. 1 attack, 3 turn. 1 attack is just really bad. And with Spice, he's definitely stronger with Shell. I think Spice is a lot worse, because he just dies so quickly. And he's really not that notable. if you give him spice. All in all, I think he is okay because the effect can put out a lot of poison, but he's low health and he's kind of inconsistent. And his effect, yeah. Next up, we got Fungun. Fungun is really nice. Fungun with a 5-turn counter really does not put out much. He does have to get hit quite a bit in order to be able to output decent poison, because he only starts at 1 poison. So you need to get hit like 3 poison to the front enemy isn't that much. You need to get up to like something 6 like 6 poison, which can be kind of hard, because it's not really good value to put support into him. He's definitely more a support unit himself with his high HP. And as a support unit, he's pretty decent, and he's good at chunking out front. Like, whenever he attacks, he does chunk out a unit. He's basically like he's basically a better version of Firefist, in my opinion. Unit that gets hit and is able to deal damage thanks to getting hits. Goji Burr is up on the chopping block. So when we first saw Goji Burr, the collective opinion was that this unit was absolutely unusable. Now, I actually think Goji Burr is pretty good. If you're able to find any kind of... So, Goji Burr is worth, as a support unit, he is worth giving charms to, specifically HP charms. If you find any HP charm for him, he's great. Extremely good. The great thing about him is that he's great at killing backline units. On Infernoco, specifically on fights like Infernoco, he could be a lifesaver, and he's really good at hitting stuff like Makoko, dealing with Makokos. He's able to deal with Makokos on his own. Kind of. If assuming they don't have a battle charm, which is worse, but if he has... Goji Burr just is able to deal with a lot of problem enemies before... He's definitely more offensive than you think he would. His uses are more offensive in nature than you would think. But the fact he's great at dealing with backlines. The problem is if he gets to low HP, he does no damage, because that's how effects work. And he never activates unless he's getting hit. Goji Burr has felt really nice to use whenever I used him. I like Goji Burr. Next up, Grath. Grath is a good carry unit. Grath, you do have to, like, put all your eggs... same with carries, you gotta put all... Same with, like, a lot of the other carries, you gotta put all your eggs in Grath's basket in order to get him good. And there are a lot of cases where I find where Grath does just come up short. But a lot of other times, he's very consistent. It's just dependent on how many times you can sacrifice. How many times you could sacrifice with him. If you have a Chikichi or a Snuffer Mask, he's great, but he can be kind of inconsistent if you don't have them. But 5 attack is great. If you find Flame Blade with him, he's amazing, because then he can be applying 20 overburn if you've lumen him, which means you can kill like a whole lane off like 3 activations and a little bit of damage on the front, on like the Frost Jailer. He can be really strong, but he can be noticeably lacking. Lacking sometimes. Next up, Haze Blazer. Haze Blazer has a history in this game of being an absolute dumpster fire of a unit, but ever since then, they fixed a lot of his problems. They gave him a lot of HP, and now he only hurts himself when he goes. He used to hurt units in his lane, so he was just felt and he has 10, and then they gave him like actually good HP so he can take hits. Haze, even with all of this, I think he's only okay. Haze can potentially be really good, but the units that are more useful to Haze are usually those in the back line, because those units are going to be the ones that are going to be hitting you. And his effect, the great thing about Haze is that it can bypass, the good thing about Haze is that it can bypass turn counter, or no, I mean snow resist. But it's like you would want this unit to hit something like Frost Bomber or Frost Lancer, and he can't really, unless you like somehow gave him Barrage, which wouldn't actually be that bad. But you'd more likely would want to give Barrage to like your main unit if you're playing like Gotcha Pumper. And he's only okay as a tank because he does hurt himself, and he doesn't have Bombom's crazy 20 HP. Next up, Jumbo. Jumbo has return counter and barrage, means he can sometimes function as your main damage dealer. But most of the time, he is going to be a 13 HP wall that can chip out backlines. And at that purpose, he's really good. I'd say he's right above BG. Jumbo's really good. Jumbo effect to hit the enemy behind him can actually be kind of beneficial sometimes if you're playing Shen, and it's very easy to just play around because you can just put him in the back. And even if you forget about the effect and accidentally let a unit get hit, he's only dealing 1 damage to the unit behind him, which is pretty negligible, unless you give him attack, in which case you actually do get punished for letting him attack a unit. Next up, we got Colonel. Colonel here, I think, can go into the great category. Colonel is basically the same as Baris, where he gets hit and then he's able to give survivability to another unit. He's probably better than Baris. I would say, it depends on it very much depends. They're very much even. They're pretty much even in my eyes. But if you have if you have Chompom, it's excellent. Any effect that hits where you hit him, if you have like Shellbow, it's excellent value because it also triggers his effect. He just offers up so much survivability for your run, and is still able to it's just so much survivability. And even with like a 4-turn counter, he does like not completely irrelevant damage, which is very impressive for somebody with as good as an effect as him. He is extremely strong, and it never really hurts to have him in your setup, unless you already have like a really good tank like Bombom. Next up, Knuckles. Knuckles will go, I think, besides Knuckles, I think he goes right besides Big Berry. Knuckles is effective that when he's hit, he attacks the unit in front of him. Now this is on hit and not smackback, so which means he only attacks the unit in the front. However, you can use things like junk to make him attack. However, he doesn't have a turn counter, and he's actually, without a turn counter, it does kind of feel like it hurts him. I'm gonna put him besides Goji Burr. I'm gonna put him below Goji Burr. Goji Burr being able to, he doesn't have, it can feel like he suffers from a lack of utility sometimes. And I don't think you can really play this unit in the carry position. He takes hits and is able to like deal a bit of damage in return. But at a 5-turn counter, his damage can be pretty inconsistent. And he only has decent health. Being able to be hit with junk is okay. Is pretty decent. I'm I'm probably underrating him a bit because I haven't played him too much, because he's one of the newest units in the game. I'll put him above BG. Alright, next up, we got... I almost called this guy Roybus, but no, it is Krao. Krao, any builder you can play Krao. Krago's the struggle character of this game. He's the struggle carry. I think Krao is really, really fun whenever he works, but he rarely does. Krao scales up, can either scale up incredibly fast or unbelievably slow. And so, good support with Krao is... I don't know. Krao, 5 turn counter is really rough. In fact, there's no way he doesn't go in niche. He is niche. Being able to play Krao is only for niche builds. He's actually, like, can be okay. Unless you're... So, something with him is that he gains attack whenever something dies, whenever an enemy dies, which is an extent of his effect. However, it doesn't usually add up to mean that much, because when is like enough enemies die so where he can start dealing some serious damage, you've basically already won the fight because you've killed most of the enemies. And like, if you are in situations where you're not, so you do have to like destroy your own cards so he can like scale up quicker. And there's some good support for that, especially with some stuff in this new update. He is another issue with him is that as a benefitter of Junk Destroy, Num Stompy is usually better, but there's gonna be lots of runs where you don't see Num Stompy. His 5 turn counter holds him back a lot. It means same with Krao. I think it's easier to scale him than it is Krao, but he still has a 5 turn counter, and it's pretty hard to make him scale up a lot. 7 HP is decent. He does just 5, and it really hurts with him if you did not scale him up enough when he first swings, which is most of the time what's gonna happen. It's only around his second swing, 5 turns from when you summon him, that he's able to like do a decent hit. You definitely need to give him something like Barrage, or Barrage, Smackback, or Frenzy in order for him to put up meaningful damage. On the topic of niche carries, we got Lil Berry. I think Lil Berry is notably worse than Krao than Krao and Junk and Krao. So Krao, and he has the same thing where it's like he doesn't have that great of a turn counter. And the thing with him is that he scales up whenever he's healed, but there are Berry Blade, Berry Basket, and there are 3 cards that heal him. One Clunker that can heal him, and one unit, and the units that can heal him are really slow at doing it. It's Big Berry and Bonnie, and they're way too slow at it. It's really hard. Most of the time when you pick him up, he scales really slowly. And even when you are able to find stuff that it's really hard to find stuff that actually scales him. You need to find 2 of the exact cards you need with exactly Berry Blade. You need exactly Pink Berry Juice and Lil Berry. And if you thing is, two of those cards, three of the cards that buff him are not that... one of them is not very good, Berry Basket, so you're not usually going to be picking it up. Pink Berry Juice and Berry Blade are things you would just pick anyway, and if you ran into Lil Berry, it's okay. But he only gains 2 attack from them, and it's like 2 attack every time you play those cards, and unless you're playing those cards a bunch, he's gonna scale really slowly, and it's hard for him to do much. He desperately needs Frenzy or Barrage in order to do good, in order to do anything effective, same as Divvy Crow and Krao. If you're not able to have that, then he pretty much falls flat. He needs so much support to be good, and it's like, if you're able to get enough HP and healing to Lil Berry where you're able to scale him up quickly, that pretty much means you're making him unkillable. That setup makes him unkillable, and if you replaced him with any other unit that dealt remotely decent damage, then the fact that unit is already basically unkillable means you've already won. Like, if you get that HP to your leader, if you were to use all those cards you played and giving HP to your leader, you'd basically be completely fine. Assuming if your leader, didn't just, literally stand there and did nothing. It's just Lil Berry might be the worst carry unit in the game. I'm looking at one other unit. There might be one unit that's meant to be a carry unit that is worse than him. And unfortunately, they are also a Snow Dweller unit. I'll let you try to guess who it is. Next up, Lil Gazi. I think Lil Gazi is okay support. Same as your boy Bushu. Lil Gazi does a little bit, gives one attack to everything on the field. In order for him to be good, you specifically need a leader that can buff that likes having attack. Like any leader with aimless. You really don't want to play this playing him with a leader or aimless. You need him with a unit that has frenzy. There's not really another unit that's worth having Lil Gazi with. The one attack to all can be really nice if you have a lot of units on the field. And there are times where you do have to let Lil Gazi does have to be, or you need to rely on Lil Gazi as your main source of damage scaling. Which those runs are rough, where you have to lumen Lil Gazi. The nice thing about him is that he doesn't have to be in the same lane, and in a lot of the early game, and even the late game, the 1 damage is a noticeable little increase, but not substantial enough to carry you throughout your run. And but he's able to deal okay damage with 4 turn counter, 4 attack, and I specifically like him a lot with Shade Mancers because he also gives his attack to summons. And there's a lot of I find he's really nice in any kind of Skull Misty setup because he is 4 attack. He's able to, if you have him on the field and then have a stronger summon, that's basically you sacrifice that unit is being buffed, and that unit having higher attack makes it a better Skull Misty target. Is that what I just say makes sense? Lil Gazi buffs a unit, and that unit is better as a Skull Misty sacrifice because they have higher attack. There we go. Next up, Loki. Where I put Loki is gonna be by far the most controversial placement on this list. Okay, let me explain. So, think so. Loki, I've always been a bit of a Loki believer. Loki has, because I think Demonize, specifically in the early before he got buffed, it was that one over. Demonize was good with Barrage Leaders, because Barrage Leaders could always take advantage of his Demonize. However, in this update, now that you're able to have in this update, he got one extra attack, and that, in my opinion, made him dramatically better, because it just made him so much better as a damage dealer. In the early game, he does his attack plus his Demonize means he does by far the most damage, has the most effective damage out of all the pets. It's like you have like let's say you have like a leader with like 5 attack, and then Loki hits them with a Demonize. Hits a unit with a Demonize. Loki is then dealing, that leader is then able to deal like, Loki has effectively like contributed 8 effective damage. Now, the problem with Loki is that he is aimless, but in the early game where you're going to be playing Loki, I find aimless is actually a lot of the times more beneficial, because it allows him to hit backline units, which is excellent for Infernoco. Now, I want to put another unit beside, I'm going to skip ahead and mention the other really strong pet, but the last thing, in the early game, whenever you play Loki, whenever he attacks, something is gonna die. Something is effectively just out of the fight. And that's really strong. And the Demonize is even good late into the run. And I've had this run, to give it just the amount of damage Loki contributes is so useful, in my opinion. And even if you're not able to immediately take advantage of the Demonize, 3 damage every 3 turns is very decent. Like, that's the same as Snoof. And Snoof I used to consider to be one of the best pets. But Loki's basically just better Snoof, because not always. Loki is Snoof with aimless, 2 more HP, and Demonize instead of Snow. And Demonize is more useful in Snow, it's very depending on the situation. And last thing I want to mention with Loki is 5 HP is more than you think. I was running numbers through my head. 5 HP is actually, means it feels noticeably he feels so much more, it's noticeably more tanky. I'm just gonna say that. Cause, let me give an example. Let's say you're in Woolly Drex, and you're fighting Grombles. Each of them are dealing 2 damage. Loki's able to pick up 2 hits from Grombles, and there's a lot of examples of 2 damage in the game, in Spike Combat, he's able to hit something like a Pawpaw, survive, and then for the fact that he applied hit 2 Spike units and then still be alive. He can Bamboozle. He can get hit by Bamboozle and then still survive a hit from a baby Snowbo or Snowbo. There's a lot of cherry picking you can do on stuff that 5 HP allows you to survive, and it makes him feel noticeably more tankier than someone like Snoof or Bushu. Yeah, I think you really, Loki, if you haven't tried Loki, I really think you should. He feels great, and anybody who, This is by far gonna be the most controversial thing on this list. People fucking hate Loki. Loki for the longest time was considered the worst pet in the game, and I never saw that. I've, again, always been a Loki believer. And I've been playing him so much as my starting pet, and he is not at all disappointed. And in fact, he has saved me a lot of time. He has really saved me. Yeah, I just repeated myself. He saved me a lot of times where other pets wouldn't have. Now, along with him, the other best pet in the game, the one that I think is actually notable, is Spike. I'm gonna put Spike right beside. Now, Spike obviously isn't as good. These two pets are obviously not as good as like these units here, but they're good because they help you in the early game because they're pets. You get them at the start of your run, so you have a lot of time you're gonna need to use them, and they're really good for when you need to use them. Spike is great. Spike even though he got nerfed, he is still one of the better pets. I think it is debatable. I would like to say Loki is the best pet in the game, but it is debatable, which I definitely think it is debatable in my opinion on which one of these two is better. Most people would definitely say Spike, but I personally would say Loki. Spike's two teeth is able to put out a lot of damage. Particularly, it's great into any fights with like a lot of small hits. Like against Jabjos, it puts out decent damage against them. Against Snowbows, he's effectively able to two-shot them. And more importantly, Spike is able to deal with backline units, which is consistently able to deal with backline units, which is extremely valuable. Can be extremely valuable in the early game. He is only able to do it against early game units, but he is a lifesaver in Infernoco. Not having and these he's great. Spike is just the HP allows him to be by far the best tank. And backline access and being a tank is really good. Next up, and if you get him to Penguins, you make infinity money. Well, not infinity. You make really good money if you have him into Penguins. All right. Enough said about Spike. Next up, we are on to Lupa. I was able to get one. My first run of the update my first winning run of the update was actually with Lupa, and it was a really cool build where I had like a leader with Frenzy, and Lupa was boosting them. It felt really cool. Now, unfortunately, Lupa is kind of hot garbage, but I think Lupa is better than Spoof, but Lupa is another contender of one of the worst units in the game. Lupa's really bad. So, problem with Lupa is that you need to have a leader that doesn't, unless you want to be buffing your leader with Lupa, you need to have a leader that doesn't have, like, an effect that can receive Lupa's buff. Because you need to have, if you want Lupa to usually just be buffing one unit, and that unit needs to be the only one on your field that can receive buffs, which can be really clunky. Any leader with like a really good archetype of leaders is gain HP on kill leaders, just because they have really good base stats. But if you have that kind of leader, Lupa becomes terrible because you don't really want to be boosting that effect. You want to be boosting other effects like, what effect would you really want to be boosting with Lupa? Something like Fizzle, I guess, or Snoffle. It actually could be really good with Snoffle. Or Tiny Taiko, or maybe Shen or Wart. There's not that many great targets for her, and And she does pretty much nothing offensively. 5 turn counter and 1 HP is non-existent. And she only has 4 health, so... And on top of all of this, whenever she gets hit, she buffs a random unit. Or, she also buffs a random enemy. Which is like, why? It's such an unnecessary downside for a unit that's already not good. And that most of the time, it doesn't actually matter. Because it just, in practice, it just doesn't really matter. But, yeah, Lupa's really bad, and her being at the bottom of this tier list should not really surprise anybody. At least I don't think it should. Next up, we got Mama Tinkerson. I would really like to put Mama Tinkerson in S tier. Every time I played her, she's been extremely powerful. But the problem with her is that there are only a handful of cards of clunkers that, if you have any of the clunkers, she's amazing. She is so strong. But it is just performance bias. It might just be performance bias with her. And if you don't, you need specifically Mimic, Blunder Tank, or Plinker, and you need to, like, give Plinker his support. Like, you need to maybe ink him. Or reduce his effect, or give him Durian Charm. If you have this and a Durian Charm Plinker, it's the freest win in the... Mama Tinkerson and Durian Charm Plinker, it's the freest win in the game. One of the freest wins in the game. It is such a steamroll. But if you don't find the things that make her good, she's pretty bad. She does nothing. She effectively does nothing. It's fun. It's really fun when you find the support, and it's extremely powerful. Like, I've had a run where I had just like a frost charm cursed mimic, and she still like did enough. The 2 frenzy was still enough to get me through the whole run. And then at that late game, when I find more stuff, it was like a complete slaughter. Potentially one of the biggest slaughter units in the game. But it's pretty hard. It's really hard when you don't find her support. Or you don't find the stuff she supports. Anyway, next up, we got here. Last thing I should actually mention is that she can be potentially the best unit in the game at making you money if you get Blink Bank, because she boosts Blink Bank's effects. So Blink Bank makes 12 money whenever you kill a unit, which just skyrockets your money. It's to the point where it's like unbelievable. You can pretty much just buy whatever you want, which is very powerful. Money's really good in this game. Anyway, that's the last thing I wanted to mention with her. Anyway, Mini Mika. Mini Mika is very strong. Mini Mika can be pretty difficult at the start of your run. She's actually not terrible because she has 8 at the start of your run, because she has 8 HP. So she's able to take some decent damage. But you do need to give her a good amount of support. But if you're able to get her that amount of support, she is extremely strong. You just need to like have a build where you're able to just play any amount of junk on her. You need to give her like Lumen at the start. Get Crown a Lumen base to give her Lumen at the start. And give her at least some amount of attack. Like, it can be as much as just like a magma booster, and then you just keep playing junk on her, and then she just kills everything. If you're able to find Balance Charm with her, she's amazing. Anything that reduces her turn counter. This unit, Mini Mika, at a 4 turn counter, used to be the best unit in the game. Like, although it was kind of... No, yeah, she was pretty much the best unit in the game. Nowadays, if you're not in the early game, if you're not able to scale her up enough, she does just like, she does fall flat. And in cases against against final fights, she can die before you're able to scale her enough, or you scale her not enough to where or she dies before she even attacks, or dies before before she scales up enough. But Mini Mika, very strong, but definitely a good carry and a good direction you can take with your runs. Next up, Monch. So Monch is a character that I personally don't really think is good, but I'm gonna actually put him in a good carry category, because watching stuff from Voix has convinced me that this unit is better than I give it credit. So the idea with Monch is that when you play him, you need to really slow down your game plan. You need to just like have stuff that keeps your leader alive, because your leader is gonna have to sit in his own lane. Because one of the worst parts about Monch to me is that Monch has to sit. If you play Monch, you have to like if you don't, you can play Monch. You can't play your leader in the same lane as him, and that's really detrimental on Final Fight. You either have to like give up on targeting Frost Jailer first, or you have to put your leader in Frost Bomber lane, which is really scary. So the idea is that like you have to just play slow, scale up Monch. I'm still not honestly completely convinced, so I'm just gonna put him in okay. But I think he's definitely better than he's probably better than I give him credit. I'm not too much of a Monch expert, I gotta be honest. I'm gonna take a quick pause. Alright, next up, we got Naked Gnome. Naked Gnome will go right next to Blunky. With what I said earlier with Blunky, it applies the same to Naked Gnome. I guess you could think of these units as kind of worse versions of Foxy. Also, I'm gonna put them farther back in the tier list. You can think of them as just kind of worse versions of Foxy, where they are great vanilla. I'll say vanilla is where vanilla damage dealers, where you can just put you put a bunch of support into. They definitely are less consistent than Foxy is. But yeah, and Naked Gnome is of course worse and better. The advantage of Naked Gnome is that you don't need to go to a Frozen Traveler to get him. You just spare him in the first combat, and it's very consistent, and it's pretty easy to be able to do that. But Blunky's extra one block is pretty noteworthy, and it's pretty dang useful. It's very good. It can be very good utility. Next up, one of the newer units, Needle. Needle will go into good support. Needle is great in any build that wants to destroy junk. Needle can make for some very satisfying setups where like you play like a bomb barrel, you make a bunch of junk, and you just get like a whole fucking, you just do a bunch of, you destroy all of them, make a bunch of draw, and then give a bunch of attack to someone like Krao or our next unit we're gonna see on this list. He has decent health and does non-irrelevant damage. But it's the fact that he destroys junk and creates that and he also creates that junk into card draw. And card draw, it can be really strong in this game. I just noticed you can see a lot of junk. You can see a lot of cards in this clan in the little junk pile Needle has here. You can see Gear Hammer, and this is Why am I forgetting Junk, why the junk guy you get at the start of your runs with Clunk Masters. Junkhead. Yeah, you can see his head in there. Tangent. Very good support. The problem is his problem is that if you don't have junk, he doesn't do anything. And his effect is mainly utility. If you have Blunder Tank, this unit's amazing. Blunder Tank just sends Blunder Tank off. And then the ultimate I should have mentioned this with Mama Tinkerson, but if you have Blunder Tank plus Mimic, and then anytime you destroy any junk, those two just win the fights because they attack 150 times. I probably got that number wrong. And I should have mentioned that during Mama Tinkerson's portion, but Needle also helps with that setup. And it's just excellent with Blunder Tank. So, pretty good unit, and feels pretty decent whenever you play him. The card draw and just getting rid of bad junk cards, just really nice. You do need cards that make junk for him, though. Next up, Nom Stompy. Nom Stompy. So, Nom Stompy is one of the units on this list that really toe the line that you could really put into either support or carry. I'm going to put them into carry, and I'm going to put them into good carry. Nom and Stompy are really powerful. Nom Stompy can be really powerful, because if you are, depending on how much junk you destroy, if you're destroying, like, let's say you destroy 2 junk, and you give him Lumen, he ends up attacking really quickly. And in the early game, he might be a little bit on. I'm actually gonna put him into. Again, it's really hard. One of the good things about Nom Stompy is that one of the things that make him really good is that he is able to fit. He's super versatile because he's able to fit as a carry or support, probably better than any other unit in this game. He's able to fit into either role. Yeah, I think he is able to fit into either role better than any unit in the game. He is really strong because he has so much health. A build I've never done, but it sounds really interesting to me, is that if you do Balance Charm on him, and then, like, anytime you destroy junk, he basically attacks, and then you, like, scale him up, and you just, like, on Pit, now that I'm saying, it's, like, it doesn't sound that crazy, and you are giving up a lot of health and attack. Like, a lot. But he's really strong. Problems with him, there's a lot of really good charm. Some really good charms with him are, like, Smackback Charm. He's excellent with that. Barrage Charm is excellent with him. I probably should be mentioning charms that are specifically good with these units. Monch is really good with Barrage. These units are really good with Barrage. This unit's good with Bomb and anything that applies statuses. Foxy's good with pretty much anything. All of these HP units are good with HP charms. I had a run where Truffle Charm Loki saved me. Bombom there's a lot of specific stuff with specific charms with Bombom that make her even better. A lot of units on this board like really love Balance or Spoof Charm, like Krao is excellent with it, and so is Devicrow. Yeah, and pretty much any unit in this game appreciates 9's turn counter, but like damage carry units like it more. Next up, we got Nova. Nova is one of the new units that came out in this update, and they will be going right besides Foxy. Nova is absurd. So Nova has a 13 turn counter, 1 block, and whenever a enemy loses block, she activates. And she has the text hits all enemies. And this boosts her into one of the strongest units in the game. It is just hits all enemies is crazy. If you scale her up enough, she just becomes able to nuke the entire field whenever she attacks. And you are actually able to, like, manipulate her effect quite a bit. And one of the best things about her fact is that she does have a 13 turn counter. That means she will eventually be able to attack once in a combat on her own terms instead of using her effect. But more importantly, this means you're able to use Blaze Tea with her. And her with Blaze Tea and other scaling means the enemies just go bye-bye. Now, Nova, more than any other unit in the game, I should have mentioned this when I talked about she really hates any kind of enemies with smackback or on hit effects because she can't avoid them by, like, hitting into another lane. She will always hit that unit, so you need to play around that. And it can be hard, really hard sometimes. Should have mentioned that. Other units that suffer from that, Blunky. Pretty much just any unit with low HP. Grath, Naked Gnome, Blunky. Mini Mika can suffer from it quite a bit. Fizzle suffers from it a lot. Yeah, okay. But Nova, absurd. And Blunky supports her. If you find Balance Charm, it's a free GG. If you find Spoof Charm, it's also really strong. Nova her effect the first appearance, I thought she wasn't gonna be that good, but she feels so consistent. Even if she's only, like, even in, like, the early game, if she only attacks once, a lot of the time, that's just gonna be enough. Because you're getting so much value whenever she attacks. Nova is amazing. And is amazing if you're able to give her Frenzy. Next up, Pimento. So, I mentioned earlier that like, to try to guess what might be the second worst carry unit in the game. The other worst one, the one that, besides Lil Berry, that unit is Pimento. I think this unit is really, really bad. So Pimento's effect is on a 5-turn counter, and he retains any spice that is applied to him. So Spice, as a strategy, can feel kind of hit or miss. It's more something that, like, it's not, the problem is not with Spice. The problem is that Pimento has a 5-turn counter, which is just absurd. Because it's like, you wanna, like, the 5-turn counter just hurts them so badly. You scale it, I will admit, I haven't actually played him that much. I've only played him once. But you need one of the handful of spice scaling cards in order to be good. You absolutely cannot perspective pick him. And unlike Chompom, you don't always want to click on Spice. It's going to be a lot of times where you just are not going to be clicking on Spice, and then you see Pimento later, and then it's like, why the hell would I ever click on this unit? His stats are just really terrible. And even with Spice, he doesn't do that much, because again, he has a 5-turn counter. Unless you find Spice Stones, you can't scale his attack extremely high like you could with Krao or Krego. You know, all these units kind of fit into the same category, where they're like high turn counter units that you're supposed to scale up really high, but it's really inconsistent to scale them. These guys all kind of fit into the same category. And Pimento's just the worst of the worst. Thinking about it, he's probably better than Lil Berry, because I think you can't scale him. It's quicker to scale him than it is Lil Berry. Lil Berry has 4 cards that scale him. Well, Pimento, I think, does also only have 4, but they're more impactful when you put them on. They're like a lot more, like up to 4 attack or 7 attack, when compared to it's only 2 attack or 4 attack or at 4 attack when you put it like Lumen Vase Lil Berry. Well, again, it's like can be up to like 7 attack, and it's like immediately. Next up, Pooty. Pooty is I think Pooty is great support. Pooty, whenever he dies, he gives a Frenzy to another unit. Frenzy is extremely valuable in this game. Very, it can be, so the problem with Pooty is that you need to crown him. Then you need a crown for the unit you want to play Pooty on, and then you need a crown a card so that he's very crown a card that is able to destroy Blunky. He's very crown hungry, is what I'm trying to say. And if you miss out on crowns, he can feel kind of rough. But he's particularly great in any kind of build where your leader is your main damage dealer, because it saves you a crown. Pooty there's not really much more to say than that. Pooty gets destroyed, gives Frenzy to another leader, and that's really good. So, Pyra got changed in this update. I don't actually super remember what the change is. Okay, so apply 4 spice to the ally behind, and at 6 health and a 4-turn counter. I haven't really played this unit. They sound okay to me. I haven't really played with the buff. Pyra used to be, like, terrible. One of the worst units in the game. I think she's okay. She's gonna be okay. She can tank a hit. Just sit in the front and tank a bunch of hits. And just, like, or survive hits and then give, like, a good amount of spice to something like a Foxy or a Blunky. She doesn't sound that strong to me, though. Next up, we got Roibus. Roibus might be worse than Lil Gazi. But I think he is okay. No, I think he got it. I think he goes in niche. I think Roibus is pretty freaking not great. The problem with Roibus is him only hitting. His effect being on hit makes it pretty limiting. Similar to Lupa's effect. He does have 7 HP instead of Lupa's 4 HP, but he doesn't do anything offensively, and the attacks he gives is pretty decent, but it's the fact that it's on the lowest attack and unit is pretty limiting. You need, like, specifically a Foxy or a Blunky. And if you have, like, a lead, this becomes a problem when your leader has, like, more than, like, 3 attack. Because then you play a unit like Foxy or Wart or Blunky, and then he's giving the buff. After buffing that unit 2 to 3 times, he's gonna start giving buffs to your leader. But I guess and his scaling's kind of pretty inconsistent, and later in the run, Roibus is gonna get, like, is gonna only be able to take, like, 1 or 2 hits and be effective, like, 1 or 2 attack, and that's just, like, unless you scale him you put support into scaling him, which is like, which I think is feels kind of silly because you're putting your support into the support, which the idea with like a lot of these support units is that they're supposed to be, a lot of the benefits they have is that they're self-sufficient. Anyway, next up we got Skaven. Skaven definitely is gonna go into the good support category, probably above Big Berry. Skaven does a lot. 5 attack on a 3-turn counter is really strong, and he has good 8 HP is really nice, and he doesn't add. I criticized Fulby for adding junk into your build that you're not always gonna be able to use. Skaven does that, but he does it a lot slower, so there's gonna be a lot more cases where you have Skaven on the board. And his junk generation is just a lot easier to control, especially when you need it. Like if you have like a recycle card, like a Samsung box in your hand, you can just hold, but no junk. You can just like wait. You can do that with Fulby too, but Fulby is gonna. You wait for Skaven to attack, and then you get that one piece of junk, then you get rid of it, and then you're able to do stuff. As a junk generator, I think he is better than Fulby, because his junk is less, like, erratic. And he offers way more than Fulby. 3 a turn, he does a serious amount of damage. He's really good. I think he can function as your carry, because 5 attack on a 3-turn counter, you give that like Barrage or Frenzy. It can actually be pretty decent. He can function as your carry. He is really good. I honestly might even place him in Great. Probably not, because his junk can still add up if you're not careful. Next up, we are on Shelly. Let me pause real quick. Let me pause first. Okay, back. And looking at the tier list now, I realize you are in the wrong tier. You are supposed to be down here. And next we are on to Shelly. Shelly is whenever a unit gets killed, they gain 3 shell. So, Shelly can provide a lot of extra survivability to units. The big problem with Shelly is that her effect becomes pretty much irrelevant on the final fight, which is really detrimental, because she doesn't offer up anything else besides her effect, because she doesn't really do damage, and she has like no health. Now, nice thing about Shelly, she's really good up until the final fight. So I don't really think I can put her in. Nope, that is not who we're doing next. Put you here. I can't really put her in niche tier, because when she is just really good up until the final fight, but then she falls off a cliff in that fight. And it really hurts. I'm gonna put her at the top of niche. No, if I'm putting the pets, putting the pets in good tier, if I'm putting units like Loki and Loki. The thing with the pets is that a lot of these Loki, for what you need, you don't need him. Loki and Spike, you don't need them to be like super useful in the final fights. They're there to help you in the early game, and she also does that. Just not offensively. Okay, we are on to Shen. So I've made it a thing on my channel where I am the eternal Shen supporter. I always, whenever anybody disses Shen, I am quick to his defense. Like, no, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Shen is the embodiment of Christ. He is the greatest unit in this game. He's so, so, so good. Now, where am I gonna place him on this tier list? I think he's good. I think Shen's pretty good. I don't think he is, like, insane or anything, but I think he is definitely a good carry unit. Shen is one of the premier sources of overburn in Shademancers, and he is one of the units that his effect is boosted when he gets hit. And unlike Fungun or Bomb, you really have to play around this on-hit effect in order for him to scale up. But he needs, I think, more support than some other units in this field, in this category. So I am gonna put him at the bottom of good carry. But he is great with Lumen. He's great with Lumen Vase, because it basically doubles his scaling. Anything that allows you to hit him you need to scale his HP. Maybe have like another source of applying overburn, and anything that like lets him attack quicker or multiple times. It is a good amount of support, but as long as you got other things going on in your build, just giving him HP can suffice. And one of the things I really like about Shen, you do need support for him. You do need to like super build your entire run around him. But one of the great things about him is that since he's Overburn and Overburn's hitting every unit in the lane, he's able to make you great money because he's really good at getting combo kills. And in the early game, it's really easy for him. He's just honestly really good. He's really underrated in the early game because there's a ton of like really small hits, like Makoko's, Mini Mokos, Baby Snowbows, regular Snowbows, Grinks, or Frostingers, Unscaled Gobblers. Just trying to think, and Porcupines. There's a lot of really small hits in the early game that he's able to scale off very easily. And even if you just get him up to like 4 Overburn, that's definitely enough to suffice. That's really enough to suffice as like an effective unit to help you through that combat. He's really nice in the early game, especially against like Infernoco or Bamboozle, because you can apply the Overburn to them. And if you're able to get up enough Overburn and then that unit dies, Overburn ends up hitting both lanes. So if you get 8 Overburn on Infernoco, and then you kill everything behind him. And it's really satisfying whenever you're able to do that. I think Shen is my favorite unit to play in the game. I always find him a blast. I love him. He is my favorite unit. He is my favorite unit in the game. I love Shen. And I know not a lot of people don't like Shen. And I can understand that. The 6 initial HP is really off-putting. But get Shen going all in. Again, you have to go all in on Shen whenever you see him. You get him in your first couple of picks, and it's the nice thing with Shen is that you have to go all in with him on your first or second pick. Unless you happen to have the good support for him when you find him. You gotta go all in, and he is not complete, and he's not like Fulbert here. He's not worthless unless you have the support. Overburn is really good. See, I could probably talk a lot longer about Shen, on why I think he's why I think he's good and people underrate him. The big one of like why I think he's underrated is people underrate him in the early game. That's the big takeaway from this section. He's really effective in the early game, which allows you to make money and allows you to scale your run easier. Next up, we got Snobble. Snobble is pretty niche. I think Snobble does function as your main carry, but at a 4-turn counter, so Snobble, in order to be like your big carry, really does kind of need, like, again, it needs Barrage or Frenzy. You can't just put a big attack number on Snobble and expect him to do much for you. You need Frenzy or Barrage, or like a Bounce Charm, or a like Sunglass Chime or Sun Charm. You really need those unless to get them. And unlike Shen, he's only like kind of okay with unless you have those. And even if you're able to support him, like with his ability to apply snow, you would want him to be more of a support unit, but it being based off his attack, it means you gotta put resources into him. And you would much rather put those resources into like your Foxy or your Blunky or your Shen or your Grath or your Fizzle and your carry unit. And it kind of feels like he's in a supporter role. Feels like he wants to be, he kind of just feels confused on what he wants to do. And in the role of a supporter, applying snow to the front enemy really isn't that valuable. Really, it isn't always that valuable. It's really inflexible on like the fact that he can only hit the front unit. Because a lot of the times, the scarier units are going to be behind other, like on Crunker or Truffle. Those units are going to be hiding behind others, so it's really hard to like actually hit. And even when he does hit, again, unless he's scaled up, he's only doing 2 snow, which really isn't much. He's pretty underpowered, but putting resources into him doesn't really feel that worth it. Sometimes he can be really good if you give him like Barrage, and he's able to like lock down a whole lane. But all around, he's pretty, I think on average, he does feel the best because he is more conventional. Scaling him is more conventional and more rewarding than these units here. Next up, we got Snuffle. I paused. I stopped there like I was gonna continue my sentence, but no, I was done with Snuffle. Next, or Snubble. Now we're on Snuffle. Snuffle needs to drink some water. And by that I mean, by Snuffle I mean me. Snuffle is a unit that's probably should be great support, but I really don't play them. But with how little I play them, I really don't. I don't play Snuffle as much as I probably should. So the key with Snuffle, I feel, I'm definitely aiming to be putting Snuffle into good support, because hitting every unit on the board with snow is really strong. And there's cool ways a cool thing you can do with his effect is that if you give him like a charm that applies a status, like a Frost Charm or Demonize Charm, then he actually becomes eligible to receive Gnome Charm. So because he's doing like an effect, he's doing something that like can have like an action, or like involves him interacting directly with an enemy, or no, involves him like hitting an enemy. So then you could have Gnome Charm, which gives him Frenzy, and him like doing the status charm effect thing isn't very valuable, but it does trigger his effect twice, which is great. You can also do that with Vanjun, and there's someone else you can do that with. And I think you could do that with, like, you can do that with any, you can do that with any unit that doesn't have, like, an attack. Like, I think you could do that with Baker or Zula. But Snuffle, I think, Snuffle is just good. The problem is that he has no health, and unless you give him support, he is a support unit you put resources into. But honestly, in a way, he feels more like a carry unit. But you can just run him. I think he is more just like support. He is more support. I'm gonna place him here. By definition, he is support. Also, Ally probably shouldn't go at the top of the tier here. Good support here. Yeah, I was talking about Snuffle. The big key with what makes Snuffle really good is when you're able to give him, like, anything that lets him get another use out of his effect. Like the Gnome Charm thing I mentioned earlier, or, like, any piece of Frenzy, or if you're able to give him Lumen Rank, because then you're able to Lumen Vase him, and he's able to whenever he goes, he permanently locks the entire board. It also works. He is a support unit that is definitely worth putting your support into, unlike his brethren in Snobble. Next up, the problem is, it's just like, again, it's like a support unit that you have to it's a unit you have to put support into as, like, a more self-sufficient support unit, which feels kind of bad. Like, he doesn't offer anything relevant towards damage whatsoever. I think he is okay. He is definitely good, but he's considered, a lot of people consider him one of the best units in the game, from my knowledge. I don't personally see it. Next up, we got Snoof. So Snoof, before Loki got buff, was, in my opinion, out of all the pets, the best one at dealing damage. Now I find he's, like, only okay at it. So honestly, Snoof to me feels like his best trait is that he can function as, if you find no good units to, like, no good carry units, then you can just make Snoof your carry, because applying snow is really good for an offensive unit, and 3 turn counters okay. But just early on, his damage is okay, but nothing crazy. He is just okay. But the definition, he's kind of mid. But he is a pet, so he does get a pass. Now, a unit that I don't think gets a pass, and in my opinion, the last pet we're seeing here is Sneasel. Sneasel is, in my opinion, the worst pet in the game. That might be a controversial opinion, but I think Sneasel is the reason I think Sneasel is the worst pet in the game is that he's the only, anything Sneasel does is outclassed by a different pet. If you want a pet that, he's basically a jack of all trades, master of none. And I don't think that's very valuable. You want a unit that can take damage in the early game? Well, Spike is better for that because he has higher health and a more useful effect when he gets hit. You want a unit that does damage with, like, a decent 3-turn counter? Well, sorry, Snoof and Loki are already doing that. You want a unit that can, like, support your run with, like, their effect. Bingu, Bushu does that better. Lil Gazi, Bushu, and even Bingu, I think, have better support effects than drawing 1 when hit. It's not a bad effect, but it has never felt very substantial to me. And I don't value it very much. really value it much at all. It's okay. It can help you dig through your deck to get like to your snow cards quicker. But it's not that he doesn't excel he doesn't excel at anything, and is outclassed by all the other pets. He's not bad. I think he's definitely okay again, but he's outclassed. Next up, we got Splinter. Splinter is definitely going in niche, and I don't think that's gonna surprise anybody. So next, I was remembering his name. Splinter. So there are Splinter is an okay damage dealer in the early game. His ability to copy effect, I really should put him lower on the list. His ability to copy an effect is okay, or can be okay. Sometimes it's actively detrimental, but other times it can be like it only ever really feels like decent. Never feels like really noteworthy. I do kind of want to put him right next to Spoof, but he's definitely better than Lupa. Honestly, one of the best cases for the most use I've gotten out of Loki, or not Loki, Splinter, is in Skull Misty setups, because he's an okay target for getting Skull Misty, because 4 attack is like decent. And then like giving 4 attack to something like a Foxy, and then it's like 8 attack for Debbie Krao. It's like pretty decent. You do have to play around the fact that he gets injured afterwards, so you gotta like save him for the final fight in order to use their effect, or like play him alongside something like Lil Gazi, so you're like, that Splinter gets injured, then you play Lil Gazi, then you play Lil Gazi in the next combat, Lil Gazi gets out injured, Splinter gets healed, then you switch between the two. You do that with like Grath. That's just a general Skull Misty tech in my Skull Misty tech for you guys. But he doesn't. Besides that, he really doesn't do much. Pretty low stats. 4 HP is pretty much nothing. 4 turn counters, very subpar. Just doesn't. And a copying effect is rarely substantial. A lot of time, you're just getting something like and it's very dependent on the actual combat. Anyway, next up we got Taiga. I think Taiga is really underrated. I really like Taiga. People are always talking about, you know, I put Spike. Okay, I put I'm now thinking about whether or not I should leave Spike and Loki in great support tier. Now that I've arrived at Taiga here, I'm gonna. Oh wait, no. How did the fuck did I grab you, Naked Gnome? No, there you go. I just love the image of Loki being in great support, but it probably is a bit of... Loki just always feels so good to me. As a first pick, now would I put Taiga in great support? I don't know. Even though it is just better Spike. I think Taiga... So Taiga is strictly better. Taiga is strictly better than Spike. It's just more HP and she also gains Spike. Gains teeth. All the good things I said about Spike apply to her, but like more so because she's even better at taking out backline units. Like because her teeth scales. If you were to ever do any kind of teeth build in this game, you would have to do it with Taiga. And, like, you had to, like, make it so her effect, like, happened a bunch. It's really bad. She is absolutely a support unit and not a carry unit. But God, am I actually gonna put Loki as the best, as a great support? Man, this is a conundrum I put myself in. I've caught myself in an opinion here. So, like, saying Taiga is great support doesn't super feel right. Is Taiga better than units like... No, I really should just put... Okay, I am... God, I'm gonna be stuck on this decision for a long while. You know what? For the time being, Taiga will go here, and then I'll decide later if I should move Taiga down. Oh boy, it's Tinkerson Jr. So with Tinkerson Jr., I have made it a joke on my channel where I absolutely hate this unit. Where I think this unit is the devil spawn and deserves to be stuffed down the garbage disposal. I really hate Tinkerson Jr. I absolutely despise this unit. Now, this is gonna come out of shock to a lot of people. Or not if you watch my videos, because I've said this as an opinion before. I think he's okay. I think he's fine. He is a 3 turn counter unit with 3 attacks, so he's okay, and he has 8 HP, so he's a good tank. And his effect to give attack to junk is okay. My problem with it is that it's really a lot of time it's really anti-synergistic with things this clan wants to do. If you're playing a junk destruction build, you don't want to be wasting your turns playing the junk that gets it out of your hand. If you have something like recycles the junk or something that destroys the junk so you can get value off of it. And even bigger thing it anti-synergizes with is Mini Mika. Mini Mika is one of the it anti-synergizes with Mini Mika, who is one of the best units in Clunk Masters. It's really annoying, but he can also be your carry if you get exactly Bingu Charm. Because you're able to, like, give snow to him. God, you need exactly Bingu Charm. Like, not, like, the thing with these guys is that you need, like, there's, like, a handful of charms that makes these guys good, while you need specifically Bingu Charm to make him able to be a carry. I think he's an okay support and a bad niche and a really niche carry. So I'm gonna put him in support, in good support, or okay support. He's fine. The fact that his buff going up to 2 attack and 3 attack was actually really substantial. His junk, the junk you play being 3 attack is actually pretty notable, instead of just turning them into goddamn turning them into scrappy swords. He is, I've said enough. He's good, but I hate him. And also he has a stupid smile. Next up, we got Tiny Tycho. Tiny Tycho, I'm gonna put right besides her sister Mini Mika. Tiny Tycho is really good. Tiny Tycho is a unit that is I would describe as very similar to Shen, but but definitely better. And I'm sorry, Shen. I'm sorry I had to say that, but Shen's really good, but Tiny Tycho is like the better. better and worse. It's harder to scale Tiny Tycho. He needs more support than Shen. But if you are able to get him support, he is just you just need to scale. You need to scale his HP and you need to scale his attack. So it is actually probably he needs more scaling, but his scaling might actually be a bit easier to scale to get than Shen's. Also, something that I should have mentioned with Shen, if you ever get Smackback, he's really, really strong. Smackback Overburn's really good with him. Okay. Anyway, back to Tycho. A good thing about him is there's good things and bad. So some notable things with him being, and it's with him being in Snow Dwellers. 2 cards in this that could help him in surviving, so he can like get hit and become stronger. Shellbow and Nutshell Cake can't be played on him because he starts with 2 attack or 2 health. So you need to give him like HP initially, and then you could play those 2 cards, which is pretty limited, which is limiting. Notably limiting, that I say. I think he is worse than Mini Mika. It's easier to build. Easier to build into Mini Mika, and you do have to go. And it's easier to pivot your run off Mini Mika when you'll have to like go all in on Tiny Tycho. But he definitely is a great recipient of support because, again, Frenzy, really powerful in this game. And then he's able to receive a bunch of Frenzy. And then he's excellent with Lumen Vase because that doubles his scaling. Doubles his Frenzy scaling. And then he is really good. Next up, one of the new units, Toaster. This might come out as a surprise to people, but I'm going to put Toaster in great support. I think Toaster is really good. Toaster, 3 turn counter, and at 3 attack, 1 frenzy, so he attacks twice, which is really, really strong for the early game. He puts out insanely good damage. Some of the best damage of any unit, like baseline. Now, of course, the issue is that he gives all your cards consume. However, this is only a problem with your snow card, but it is a pretty big downside that you do consume your snow card. Of course, with Clunk Masters, this effect a lot of time is actually beneficial if you're playing like Krao or Nom Stompy. That kind of line is really good. Or Blender Tank, that is like you get junk in your deck and then you're easily able to destroy it by just playing it with Toaster. That kind of setup is really good if you have something like Noomlin biscuits. Wait. No, Zoomlin. No, not Noomlin biscuit. Zoomlin. What's the card then? The one that gives Zoomlin to everything in hand. It's Zoomlin something. It's the one that Voix has been getting tortured by his comments. It's the one that Voix's comment section has been torturing him with. But excellent damage, and he even has 9 HP. So back to the thing of him consuming cards as a downside. It is only bad because it means you can only use a snow card once. You can only use your Snowzuka once with him. Which can be a really big downside. However, if you find other snow cards, and specifically you find Snowcake with him, he's really good because Snowcake's one and done, which is just his style. And consuming other cards, having your other cards getting consumed really doesn't mean much because those cards aren't besides your snow card and your Sunsong box sometimes. your other cards in your starting deck really aren't very substantial or get used up when played. And the same can be said for a lot of cards in Clunk Masters. Whenever I've used Toaster, he's felt really good. I really like Toaster. Next up, we got Tusk. Tusk, I used to think was one of the best units in the game, but that was before I started doing, like, Frost Guardian consistently. He falls off pretty hard in Frost Guardian. However, he doesn't fall off completely, and I think he is notably better than. No, I think he goes in okay. He's really good up until Frost Guardian. Teeth to everybody is excellent for targeting backline. I think I do have to put him up higher because it's extremely good in the early game. Shelly's only like okay for like giving your units survivability, while Tusk is excellent damage in the early game and is able to easily make quick work of backlines. The teeth also applies to summons. So, like, Jun-Juns, whenever you let a Jun chump block, you're dealing 3 damage to the unit that hit Jun-Jun, which is really good. Tusk doesn't offer up anything else. The damage he does himself is pretty much non-existent, and 5 HP is not very good. But the damage he deals to backlines and just in general throughout a run can be really good, especially against any unit that attacks quickly, like a Makoko or a Gromble. He can put up a lot of damage. Next up, Van Jun. I honestly used to thought Van Jun, when she first got changed, was the best unit in Shade Mancers. I definitely don't think that anymore. She goes in okay carry. So Van Jun is really, really good. You put all your support into Van Jun, you play like 3 summons, and then she's buffing up all of them into like crazy behemoths, and she feels like unstoppable. And then you walk into Frost Guardian, and then it all goes wrong. Van Jun, more than any unit in the game, really hates the mechanics of Final Fight, Frost Brigade. Because, so, a lot of times in the early games, you move her around, you're gonna be moving her a lot between the 2 lanes so you can dodge, like, backline things and move her behind one of her summons, and then move her behind one of the summons that she's buffing because they're gonna be tanky. Yeah, you have to put her behind. She suffers from the same thing Monch does, where you have to put her, like, your safest bet is that you put her in Frost Jailer's lane, which means she can still get hit by the Frost Lancer if you get unlucky. The bigger problem, but that's just the first bit of problem. The second thing is she dies. Her lack of survivability becomes really noteworthy. It becomes noteworthy because of that Frost Lancer fact. You always have to play around you can't just play around like hoping that Frost Lancer doesn't fuck you over. You have to, in order to play well, you have to play around him not like getting lucky and hitting Van Jun. You can't play around him getting unlucky and hitting like a Jun you put in front of Van Jun. And just that fight, a thing with that fight is that you gotta like try to take control of it, apply snow to a lot of enemies, get your units tanky enough before a certain point, because a lot of times, a lot of units, all the Frost Brigade's attacks will sync up, and if that happens and you're not prepared, you lose. And Van Jun scales slowly. So the key to winning with Van Jun on Frost Brigade is that you need to activate her. You need to get her to activate enough times, or get her activations strong enough to where you're able to scale up like 3 to 4 shades before she dies. You need to scale them up enough so they can win the fight for you. And that's not impossible, but it does mean you need a lot more support for her. You need more support for her in that fight than you do in any fight in the run. You need to like quit, because you need also she also needs to scale them up before the shades die, because Frost Bomber, if you put them in the top lane, can kill the shades really quickly. Along with like Frost Destroyer, Frost Scrapper behind Frost Bomber. Then you need to also, it's just a lot of stuff. It's really hard to play her in that fight. But if you're able to scale up your summons enough, she is able to win you that. She is able to get past that fight. She's also benefits from the fact that she's in Shade Masters, and you can just run Soulbound Skulls to just delete one of the units from that fight, which makes it a lot easier and makes her life a lot easier. Really, really strong up until that fight, and then it becomes when you get to that fight, it becomes a race against the enemies to scale up your shades enough so you can win. And because of that, I can only really put her in okay. Going right beside her is gonna be Vesta. I used to think Vesta. So Vesta, I'm gonna put at the top of okay. And hold on, I need to drink some water. My throat's getting dry. So Vesta, So the cool thing with Vesta is that she has Barrage, which is, if you're able to give her attack, is really good. Sadly, Shade Masters are kind of she starts out with 0 attack, so she literally does no damage. And trying to run her as a unit with besides okay, I should have actually prefaced this to talk about her double effect. Her effect of double overburn means you need overburn for her effect to mean anything. And the thing with Vesta that makes her really good with overburn is giving her frenzy or making her attack exceptionally quickly with like a sun charm, because you're able to just like if you have like, let's say you have a Shen that applies like 6 overburn to an enemy, you double that into 12, but then if you have frenzy, you're doubling that 6 becomes a 24, and then you attack again, and then if Vesta attacks again, the 24 becomes a becomes a really big number. 24 becomes a 48, and then, like, the 48, it's exponential growth with Vesta, which is very, and you're able to exponentially grow really quickly if you give Vesta Frenzy. However, you need Overburn, and then you need her to, like, not die so long enough so that she can actually, like, double the Overburn quick. Keep doubling the Overburn to kill a lane in Frost Brigade. She's good. So the thing with her is that you don't actually need you don't need to play her with Overburn, because she does have Barrage, which is useful. But as I mentioned earlier, she starts at 0 attack, so you need a lot of scaling for her in order to be for her to be a proper carry. And any kind of run where She does really need to play with Overburn to be noteworthy. I tried playing runs with her without Overburn, and it doesn't really work out. But all in all, she's definitely an okay carry if you're able to get... She's an inconsistent but potentially a very powerful carry. Next up, we got Wallop. We're almost done. 4 units to go. Wallop here. It is Mr. Wallop. Wallop is going right next to Big Berry. Basically, going right next to Skaven, all these big Tinky units. Basically, pretty much fulfills the same purpose. A little bit weaker than Big Berry, but has the potential to super duper chunk an enemy. You can definitely, there's definitely situations where you can play him as your main carry. Because the extra damage he does is really noteworthy, especially if you Lumen it. It's 16 extra damage. Then maybe you run something like a Snuffle, give him Barrage, and then he's dealing like, give him Barrage and maybe a friend. That's asking a lot. I'm painting out a lot. You need, for him to be able to be a support unit, you need him to be a lot, but he is very self-sufficient as just a, in order for him to be a carry, you need to give him a lot, but he's a very self-sufficient support tank. Next up, we got Wart. Wart is another unit that can really flex between support and carry, but I'm gonna put him at the bottom of good carry. I think you need, thing with him is that he doesn't scale as well as a lot of these as a lot of the other units in this tier. But he definitely is he's great in the early game, just cuz if you give him a lot of the poison support in the clan, he becomes really good. Give him something like a Truffle Charm, he puts out crazy poison. He's great with Lumen Vase. He's very strong. He's a very good damage dealer, and is even decent as a tank with 6 HP. 6 HP. He's really strong. Give him attack, minus turn counter. He's gonna do great things for you. Next up, Yuki. Yuki will also be going in good carry. Yuki, so the goal with Yuki, you pick every single card that says snow. You do that, you win. You get a Snow Cake, you get a Snuffle, you get a Snobble, you get any card, you give her a friend, you try to give her Frenzy. She's really strong. She's able to get insane attack. Get a extremely big snowball. And it's pretty consistent because the great thing about her is that you gain value for doing stuff you already want to do. You always, pretty much always want to be applying snow to enemies. There's never a time you have like a snow, there is so rarely a time where like you have a snow card in your hand and that you don't play it. So Yuki gives you immense value for something you're already doing, which is what makes her a great carry unit. Finally, last on the tier list here is Zula. So my initial impressions on Zula was that she was really bad because it was the same as Shelly, where like on-kill effects are really bad up when you get to Frost Brigade. She becomes a vegetable during that fight. She does absolutely nothing. That's actually not true. At 7 HP, she can tank decently in Frost. She can take like 2 hits from Frost Bomber, which is pretty decent. And I will actually put her in good, cause applying one overburn to everybody, or not to every god, imagine. Now, I don't think her effects can be a little weird, but applying Overburn is really strong. That's why. And she's definitely a support unit. She tanks damage decently and applies Overburn when you kill enemies. And it can be quite a bit. It's good. if you kill like 2 enemies, then you're able to apply a 4 overburn. She can be kind of unreliable, but her effect is good enough to where her unreliability is like worth it to try to work past to get use out of her overburn, because it can be really strong and get you a lot of combo kills. It's like, again, really strong into something like I honestly think she is worse of a support unit than Shen is. Just like, now thinking about it, I think she's gonna go at the top of okay support, because her effect is kind of hard to play with, but she definitely puts up decent overburn and is also hot, so she gets bonus points. So now let me look at how I'm going to arrange this team. I think I'm gonna put Skaven up in great support. Now looking at how I want to do it. God, am I really gonna say Taiga is great support a lot? No, I honestly think I'm gonna play it safe and put Loki and Spike here. Put them here. I think this is, and I really would put Loki in. No, I think I would actually put you here, Skaven, because I think you are notably better than. Would I put Taiga? See, what I want to do, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. This is, like, more accurate to how I feel. But am I really calling Taiga great support? No, I could just move all these units down. I could move all of these units. I think I'm going to put Pooty here. And Chikichi here. I don't know if I'm completely satisfied. Let me try to... time to do some last second rearranging. I think Splinter's better than you. I'm confident in this niche thing. Lil Gazi's better than you two. I have not a lot of experience with Pirate, so she'll stay there. I think all of these units are notably better than the ones up here. Or these units are arranged correctly. I think these ones are arranged well. I honestly really would say Taiga is great support. Just backline, targeting, and then she's able to tank. Something I didn't mention with the Taiga and Spike is that they're really good into 2 of the combats you fight after you. She's really good. They're really good into Crabs and Razor. These 2 are great at killing Razor and soaking up, and they're good at soaking up the Burster's Haze. I really honestly will. This might just be complete bias. I think this is how I'm arranging the tier list. I think this is my legitimate opinion. I feel like since I'm putting Taiga here, I do just have to put her in the same lane as... Okay, the Spike has the benefit is that, like, you can pick him if you want to use him in your run. Or at the start. Get him at the start, and he's really good at the start. And you always get him at the start. Well, he does kind of fall off a bit later. I am gonna put him there. I am gonna put Taiga there. This is This great support category is the one I'm the least sure of. I gotta admit. But I think I like how this looks. The thing you gotta take away from this great support category is that Bombom is by far the best support unit in the game. There's like no competition. Is the best self-sufficient tank damage dealer in the game. And her effect can even like be used in sacrifice builds. Just fun. Alright. This is very sure on the rest of this tier list. I think this stuff. Yes, here we are. We have reached the end of the line. This video is almost 3 hours long. Here we have the Wildfrost. Actually, wait, I didn't arrange these tiers very much. I think I'd say Demona's probably a little bit better. I like BG here. You're good there. I think Wolf's probably better than you, and Big Berry's honestly probably better. Yuki's good here. I like Grath more than these units. Shen can sit here. Yeah, alright. Although the thing with you is that you can come up short sometimes, but everyone else, yeah. Alright, yeah. Basically, talking to myself out loud, this is the final tier list. The Wildfrost 1.2.0 Companions tier list. Let me know in the comments what you think of this tier list. Tell me about why my opinion is... Tell me what you agree with and what you disagree with. Let me know changes you would make. If you enjoyed this tier list, make sure to like, comment, and or subscribe. And if you want to see other tier lists, let me know it. Other tier lists for Wildfrost, let me know in the comments. All of you out there, have a nice day.